Hello, hello. Welcome back to Productivity Mastery, episode 208, meaning there's 207 more episodes. So if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, make sure to visit us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or anywhere else whenever you are listening to your podcast. Click subscribe. The more people subscribe to the podcast, the more likely we are to invite and have a chance to get amazing people on the podcast. As you guys know, always great guests, always inspiring guests. Today is not an exception. I'm here with Rob Krecak. I just want to tell you guys, it's been a couple of years we've been trying to set up this recording, and either I'm busy or Rob is busy, or literally it's been more than 2 years. So you're in for treat right now. You're in for a treat. Rob, how are you today? This morning.
Thanks, Stoyan. I'm doing great. Really excited to be here, and yeah, it's been a journey coordinating. So I'm really grateful that we can make this happen today.
Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, like the short version of the story? Because I mean, you've been an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. You've been in finance, something that I'm excited about because I do have a bachelor and master's degree in finance, and I always resonate with finance kind of people. But give us the short picture. Where are you coming from, and what do you do today?
Yeah, well, I always I always joke that I have career ADHD, but I really truly do actually have ADHD, and I think that that's really common amongst entrepreneurs. And so I have had I'm on my 10th business, and they've been in very different industries. My first businesses were health clubs. Then I owned some cell phone and computer repair stores. I've done a couple. I've done a technology startup, and I did some fractional CFO consulting. And now I have an AI company that implements sales agents on company websites to convert more traffic.
I love it, man. So entrepreneurship is a team that's being coming again and again. You're back to entrepreneurship now, consulting. Why is that? Is there anything that brings you back to entrepreneurship? I mean, you have a finance background. You can always build back and work in the financial industry. Why do you keep coming back as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, I started my career as a sell-side equity research analyst, analyzing medical device and pharmaceutical stocks. And I did that for a living for 5 years. And so that really kind of set me up to understand how to analyze a company and its industry and what are the key components of profitability in those, in any given industry. But honestly, the corporate life really isn't for me. I don't like the bureaucracy, and I honestly don't like people telling me what to do. I mean, most people don't, but I feel like I'm more of a leader than a follower. And the other thing about entrepreneurship that I really enjoy is that you get to create something from nothing. And you also get to be fully responsible for the outcome. Now, that could mean that you're responsible for the failures just as well as the successes. It's not just a one-way street, but I'm willing to take the risk and be responsible for and accountable for the failures and successes of the businesses that I start. And I just find that very empowering and very cool.
When was it that you started being interested in personal development, personal growth?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story, and it kind of was like a light bulb moment for me. So I got this job out of college at an investment bank. It was at a super good investment bank in Milwaukee. Really well. It was Robert Baird, and really well. Great reputation, incredible people that worked there. It was basically like my dream job, and I was paid really well for someone out of college. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to make this list. I made it in Excel, ironically. It was kind of funny. I made this list in Excel of all this stuff that I wanted to buy since I got this good job. And so basically, I bought almost all the things on the list in my first year of working. And after the list was basically empty, I said to myself, am I really happier today? Am I really that much more fulfilled now that I've bought all this crap? And the answer was no. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird because I bought all this stuff. I don't really feel any differently. I have this great job. I'm missing something. And so that's kind of what started and kind of kicked me off on this personal development journey. Right around that time, I also read the book 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I'm sure everyone in this podcast has heard of that. Amazing book. And really that kind of started me on this personal development, I'll just say journey, because I'm still on the journey and I'm still learning every single day.
I love it, man. Somehow, each and every one of us, part of this community, this podcast, probably have a story. This one moment that maybe you're feeling lost, or you sign up for this seminar, this workshop, or you read this book, and all of a sudden you're on this journey that is never ending.
Yeah.
It's incredible, man.
Yeah, it's fun. And, one of the things that I have this personal statement of values that I regularly review. And it literally took me like over 50 hours, like an entire work weeks of time to come up with this. And I still constantly refine it and ask myself, is it relevant? And one of the 10 principles on there is you have to work really freaking hard and have no regrets. And, and also to get better every single day. Because if you get better just 0.1% every day, not 1%, but 0.1% every day, and that's compounded over a year, you're nearly 50% better in just 1 year. And I think that that's amazing. So I just want to get 0.1% better every day. And that's my goal.
Do you have any specific personal habits that are non-negotiable?
Yeah, I mean, I'm laughing because my wife would totally agree with me. I'm like obsessive over really getting good sleep, because basically if you don't get good sleep, it comes at the expense of every single other thing in your life. I mean, if you don't sleep well, you're not going to be able to perform well at your job. You're not going to be able to work out. You're not going to be as patient with your kids. You're not going to be as good of a husband or wife that you could be to your partner. And so, I have done countless things to, kind of optimize my sleep. And I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but I really prioritize that a lot, because I know that it makes me a better person when I sleep well.
Can you maybe share some tips?
Yeah. So some of the things related to technology that I do are I have a schedule set on my phone so that it puts the phone into like a sleep mode, and it turns the screen a very like ugly color, basically. And that's kind of my cue to stop using my phone, or at least to not use it as much. Now, I'm not saying that I follow that every single day. That would be a lie. But basically, I make sure that I'm off my technology as much as possible an hour before bed. And admittedly, that's sometimes still difficult for me to do, but at least I'm mindful about it. And I, make it a deliberate effort to not be on technology. And I really think that can absolutely help, not only me, but other people get more sleep and better quality sleep. And I can actually talk about the kind of the psychology of that if you want me to give an example.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So this came up because this was actually me, at my job in finance. So let's just pretend that it's 10 p.m., right? And you're about to go to bed and you check your email and I did this a million times, right? Like I'm like, just like, oh, I'm going to check my email right before I go to bed. So it's 10 p.m. You check your email. You get an email and read an email from your boss, and it really pisses you off. Like it makes you really upset. Well, here's what happens psychologically and physiologically. So you read this email, you're super upset. Here's what happens. You probably aren't going to respond to this email, because if you do, it tells your boss that you're checking your email at 10 p.m. and you don't want to really get in the habit of showing him or her that you're checking your email that late. So you're probably not going to respond. But you get really, again, upset, and you kind of bottle up this emotion then because you haven't responded and kind of like closed the psychological loop of this email. So what happens is when you get upset, your body activates your sympathetic nervous system, which is essentially your fight or flight system that keeps you alive during stressful situations. So you activate this sympathetic nervous system, it releases cortisol and adrenaline in your body, amongst many other chemicals, and it amps up your nervous system. Well, you essentially now are in this amped up state, and that prevents you from going to bed. And even if you do go to bed, it's going to probably prevent you from getting restful and good sleep, good quality sleep. So basically, checking that one email and then getting really upset and going into fight or flight essentially ruins the entire night of sleep for you, and essentially then ruins your next day. And so again, I did this many times myself, and I realized, like, oh my God, this is not good, because I'm not getting good sleep because I'm checking my email. So I stopped checking my email completely, usually after like 5 or 6 p.m. each day. And again, I'm not saying I'm good about that every single day, but the majority of days, I just simply don't check my email after 5 o'clock.
When was it that you decided that you have to reevaluate your relationship with technology?
When did I? Yeah. Well, and by the way, I'm sorry, I just have a slight cold here, so I'm just gonna use this while we're on the on the podcast. Um, so I have a couple stories actually that are why this is such a personal topic for me. So when I was in high school, it was a very, very tough time for me because I had extremely bad acne. It was terrible. Like I had to take the strongest acne medication that is offered twice in order to get rid of this acne. And so, as a result of that, I had very low self-esteem and self-worth. And I didn't want people to look me in the face because I just didn't want them to see my face that way. But you can't, run around with your face covered up in high school as a guy. You can't wear makeup, or you could, I guess, but you didn't back then. So basically this acne was like very impacting to my mental health. Well, one of the things that happened as a result is that I actually became addicted to video games. And again, this was in like the mid 90s, when no one had a cell phone or no one had an internet connected computer, but my family was very technology forward. And the
What games were you playing? What
the
games were you
game that
playing?
I got addicted to was Diablo 2. Diablo 2, yeah.
Man, I feel you, man. So many times, I mean,
Yeah.
amazing game.
Oh, so
If
it's
anybody
so
from the audience, played Diablo 2, let us know in the comments.
yeah.
Go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
Totally. And it's totally addicting. And Diablo 4, the most recent one released, is even more addicting. It's crazy. And so, I got addicted to video games because our family's computer was in my bedroom. It was the only place in the house where we could like put it, essentially. So I was playing Diablo 2 when I was in, middle school, high school, like way later than I should have been on school nights. And I realized that I was addicted to this video game, and it wasn't good. You're supposed to be studying or sleeping. And so that was kind of like the first moment where I had this realization that technology isn't necessarily all good, right? Like, we don't always use it for good. It's not always a positive influence in our life. Let me just put it that way. And then at other points in my life, I was addicted to my email for my job, like I was essentially talking about earlier. And I was also addicted to Facebook. And so I've basically been addicted to a lot of major technologies that we use. And this is why this is such a passionate topic for me. I call the study of the impact of technology on humanity, I call that technology mindfulness. And to me, technology mindfulness means finding the right balance of technology use for you that serves you well. It doesn't mean that there's a right or wrong amount or right or wrong way to use technology, because maybe I use it in a way that serves me well and it doesn't serve you well. But the point is, you have to experiment on yourself and figure out what's a right amount and the right way to use technology for yourself. And then, maybe decide to change your behavior if you want.
So if somebody's listening right now and it's kind of like a wake up call, maybe they were not very conscious about it. Everybody's having their phones, computers. We get in touch with technology everywhere these days, and now somebody's listening there, and they're like, you know what, I maybe should re-see my relationship with technology. Where do you start? Like, what would be your advice?
Yeah. So again, I think, and this is more like just a general life principle, but I always like to be my own experiment, right? And what that means is and the result of what we're talking about today is I read over 100 books over 5 years and 2,000 articles and studies to understand the impact of technology on humanity. And then as I was reading those articles and books, I ran hundreds and hundreds of experiments on myself to experiment on me to figure out what worked best for me. And the good news is that if someone like me with ADHD can focus and be really productive, then you can too. I promise you, you can. It's just a matter of finding and experimenting on yourself. So I guess the first thing that I would say is you have to know where you're starting. And what I mean by that is, if you haven't already, you can enable these screen time trackers on your phone that essentially tell you or keep track of how much time you're using every day on your phone. And some people might say, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to look at the result. And that's like saying, well, if you're overweight, you don't want to look in the mirror. I mean, you still look the way you do, right? The screen time still is what it is, whether you're tracking it or not. So you might as well track it just to understand where you're starting from. And then once you track the amount of time you're spending, then you can maybe try to set some realistic goals in terms of how much you want to reduce your screen time if you do, or maybe how to use your screen time differently if you want to just simply change the way you're using your phone.
That's a good starting point, starting with assessment.
Mhm.
How much am I using those technologies? And I guess it's not just the time, but it's also the way we use it.
Exactly. So here's why, here's a very critical point that it literally took me about 50 books to realize. So this was very hard to like piece the puzzle together to understand this. But what I learned is, and again, through my own observation on myself as well, is that some of or a good amount of our technology use activates this fight or flight nervous system all the time. So as an example, if you are a white, here's how the data comes up, right? And again, I'm like a data nerd. I love the data. So it's like, here's kind of how my data mind works. The average white collar worker who works at a computer spends about 4 hours per day, or almost half their day, in email and messaging. So like email and Slack is 4 hours a day. Then the average person's also spending about an hour a day checking the news. And then the average person also spends about 2 hours per day on social media. So if you add up 4 hours on email, 2 hours on social media, and an hour checking the news, that's 7 hours a day. And a lot of that use could be putting you into fight or flight. And the thing that people don't realize is that every time your nervous system gets activated and this fight or flight system gets activated, it takes at least 30 minutes to downregulate and recover. Well, if you're spending 7 hours of your day in fight or flight and it takes you 30 minutes to recover, you're basically never, ever recovered. You're basically never getting to a reasonable baseline for your nervous system. And this, I truly believe, is the root cause of why a lot of people have a ton of anxiety today. It's because of their technology use and how they're using it. And so, a lot of the things that I kind of coach people on related to this topic are, how can you not necessarily eliminate these things, but how could you maybe reduce the use of some of the ways that you're using technology and replace it with something that's more constructive for you or more helpful, or something maybe you enjoy a little bit more.
So you've read so many books on the topic, so many scientific articles, which I appreciate, by the way. I wonder, from all this research, from experimenting on yourself, what do you observe are some of the habits, these bad habits we have with technology that we don't even realize sometimes, right? But
Yeah.
these are, the hidden bad habits.
So the thing that oh man, there's just so many. And again, I want to be clear that I love technology and I'm a huge fan. Like, I built my first computer in middle school. I think technology does amazing things for humanity. There's so many positives of it. So I don't want people to get the wrong message here. The message isn't technology is bad. The message is we need to find a different balance of technology use for ourselves. So I just want to, first of all, be super clear about that, because I'm a big advocate and proponent of technology. But here's some of the things that are happening to people and they don't even realize it. And this is literally happening to basically the entire world population, because almost everyone now is connected to the internet through their phone. So they've run studies that show that if you even put your phone face down and turned off, but it's on the table, it reduces the feelings of trust, empathy, and closeness between two people. And the reason is, think about what your phone represents. It's not just a phone. It represents your social connections, your job, your email, your bank, basically it represents almost everything in our digital world. And so when you place your phone face down and turned off, but it's in your field of view, you're subconsciously thinking about all those things that the phone represents, and you're not fully present with the person in front of you. That's why, for instance, even during this podcast, my phone is actually behind me and on the carpet. It's like not even remotely in view of me for this podcast, because I want to be fully present for you and the listeners. So that's one thing. That's just one simple thing that I guarantee you is affecting billions of people, and they don't even realize it.
Yeah, one simple thing. But again, it's the small things, the small habits, as you said, that we do on a consistent basis. It's not a big thing, right? It's not I spend 12 hours playing Diablo one night, right? I mean, it could affect your next day, right? But you're not going to do it every day. Maybe some people do, but it's more like, people listening to this podcast, probably it's these small things, right? For example, one habit that I don't know if it's a habit or it's a decision, but something that helped me tremendously the last couple of years is switching off all notifications on my phone.
Yes.
Only this, man, especially from the messaging apps, especially from Instagram, uh, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Slack, even. Like, I don't have any notifications. I need to get into the app so I can see that I have a message. Before that, man, wow, are you kidding me? It was controlling my life, man.
Yeah.
And I'm the productivity guy, I'm consulting companies on productivity, and I was so addicted to my notifications. Doesn't mean I'm not checking my notifications all day long.
Yep.
But a lot more mindful about it.
Love
And
that.
that's been a game changer, man.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And that's the thing, is about 80% of people haven't adjusted the notifications on their phone. That to me is totally bonkers, because there's no way that you can be present if your phone is always binging or beeping or whatever. You just can't do it. So I totally agree that's that's a huge positive. And another thing that again, like, some people lose their mind when I say this. So hear me out. This is we'll just call it an advanced hack, and it's not for everyone. But if you think that you really want to take your focus to the next level with your phone, there's a couple things that you could do that I think are really impactful. The first one is, and I did this about 4 years ago, and I've never looked back. I've completely deleted email from my phone. Like, I don't have an email app on my phone at all. I don't check my email from my phone. I only check it from my computer. And that totally changed my relationship with my phone, because now I wasn't checking nearly as many things. And by the way, like, as someone with ADHD, you're prone to check stuff. It's just like how your physiology is wired. And so when I had email on my phone, I would just be checking it all the time, even though I had the notifications off, right? Like, it didn't make a ton of sense. So now, if you're not willing to take the leap and do that, and I agree that that's probably a heavy ask, another thing that you could do is, instead of having your email on the main page of your phone, you can move it to the very last page of your apps. So now, on purpose, it's way less convenient to get to, and you have to scroll a bunch. And when you're scrolling, hopefully you'll be thinking to yourself, is there really a true purpose that I need to do or have to go to my email now? And maybe you'll, be a little bit more mindful about why you're checking your email if you move it to the last page.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. We had a guest on the podcast, Herman Coppola is his name, and he's obsessive about his digital technology habits. So, on top of not having notifications, I know that he's using the black and white screen. I
Yeah.
haven't done it.
Yep.
I'm still having a color screen, but for him, he's like, that's a game changer because it's the colors. Even if I don't have notifications, it's all these apps are having red and blue and all these colors that you want to click. They're so attractive, right? And he said that he's significantly less excited to press the button if the screen is black and white.
Totally. Well, here's what's interesting. Here's the psychology about why humans are attracted to screens. So in nature, we pay attention to stimuli that are bright, loud, and moving. Bright, loud, and moving. Why is that? Because things that are bright, loud, and moving can kill you. So it's a survival mechanism to pay attention to things in the environment that are bright, loud, and moving. Well, what's a screen? It's bright, it's loud, and it's moving. This is why when a toddler looks at a screen or a baby, they have no idea what the screen is, but you can just see in their eyes, they're like entranced. It's like a drug to them because it's so novel and it's so unusual. And this so like there's a physiological reason why we are attracted to screens. It's not just because they're interesting or entertaining. Like we're literally like hardwired to look at them as a survival mechanism.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? Because I mean, you tell me because you know much better than me, but the physiological reactions that are happening, like every time um, you see this button and notification, and you probably create this fight and flight, right? It's
All the time. Yeah,
for no
people.
reason. For no reason, you have a message on freaking WhatsApp from your grandma, like and then you're like, huh, right? Like it's
Uh-huh. And that's and again, not to go too far down the weeds here, but that's part of the problem is the tech companies have an incentive to get your attention because that generally makes them money, which is not surprising. That's just the business model. But the problem is when every single tech platform or every single thing wants to get your attention and you only have 24 hours in a day, it starts to become overwhelming, right? Like everything is getting trying to get your attention all the time. And again, with only 24 hours in a day, it's just not possible to pay attention to everything all the time. So, that's sort of the nature of the business model of a lot of the tech companies is directly at odds with your mental health, essentially. They're sort of a zero-sum game. And so you have to decide how much of your mental health and your time you want to sacrifice for the benefit of using technology. And again, like these are questions that you have to ask yourself and answer for yourself. I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong for you, but I just think that people haven't even begun to think about this as a concept, but that's really what's happening. And now that you kind of have that framework in your mind, you can start to think about it a little bit more carefully for yourself.
yeah, absolutely, man. You go to any app, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. What they want from you is your attention. They
Yep.
want you to stay more in their app. They want you to be engaged so you can, interact, comment, and of course there's ads, right? Like your attention is what they're selling. Like that's
Yes.
the water, right? Like I mean, advertisement. But for advertisement to happen, you need to be in the app and you need to be engaged, which is why those of you who are content creators, you know that if you're including links, external links to your posts on some of the platforms, the algorithm is going to push your post down because they don't want you to leave the app. So they're going to
Right.
punish you.
Yeah.
It's not because it's just the algorithm. No, algorithm is designed to make you stay in the app and be obsessed about it and addicted. And sometimes you go to the app from your phone and you see a picture or whatever, something that's really interesting, but it goes down 7 screens down, right?
Yep.
This is designed. It's not a bug. it's a
It's
then it
yeah.
starts, where is that? Like
And I didn't come up with this, but I really think that this is like a very true statement. If you're using something and it doesn't cost you anything, you are the product. With social media, you are the product. Your time and attention is the product. That's what they're serving up to advertisers, your time and attention. And that really is true for a lot of different products. It's not just for social media. But if you're not paying for something, you are the product. And it's just interesting to
That's
think
right.
about.
That's right. And I mean, one thing I I think I learned from Tim Ferriss, probably
Hmm.
was in the book or it was early on his podcast journey. He shared it somewhere, but it was the email batching.
Yes. Yep.
So basically, I used to be the person excited about every new email I received, immediately click on the email because I had notification on my phone, and then I
Yeah.
start replying. And at some point, I read an article or a podcast, I don't remember, where Tim was recommending what is the point of you being reactive. You
Yes.
have to identify your priorities, and then you need to say, you know what, I'm only going to check email twice a day or three times a day,
Yeah.
12 to 12:30, instead of me every time a email arrives and I'm like, oh, you just 12 o'clock, you look at your whole email box and you reply to this, for 30, 45 minutes, all the emails, close it down. The next time you open an app is, I don't know, 5 o'clock. You decide,
Yes.
right? You're in
Yes.
control.
I absolutely believe that I actually have times, excuse me, I have times blocked off in my calendar for answering email, and I do exactly that. Just check it usually a couple times a day, if I'm being diligent. And I absolutely think that that's a huge hack. Sorry. I do want to, and something you just said, Stoyan actually reminds me of one of the things that I wanted to make sure I shared with your listeners, because this to me is something that you can do in 3 minutes, and it could literally change the entire way you do your job. So here's something I want to share with you guys, and I'll take you through a series of just 2 questions. They're very simple, and if you do this exercise for yourself, I guarantee you it will help you think differently about your job and what you do for a living. So here's the exercise. Let's pretend that you only have 2 hours per week to do whatever it is you do, not 2 hours a day, but 2 hours per week. All right. So, and this isn't realistic. It's more just hypothetical, right? But just hear me out on this. So you have 2 hours per week to do your job. Now, for those 2 hours, think about what is the one single activity that you would do during those 2 hours to provide the most value to your company. And you only get to choose one activity. You can't say, oh, I'm going to divide up the 2 hours into 4 things and do 4 different things. You can't do that. So think about that one activity that you do that provides the most value for your company. So think about that. Do you have it in your mind? Now, you can write it down or keep it in your mind. Now, here's the second question. And this one is the really more meaningful question. And be honest with yourself. You don't have to tell me, but just tell yourself, how many hours per week do you currently spend on that activity? Now, don't feel bad if the answer is very small, like even 0 hours, because when I've surveyed hundreds of people this question, and I've also just talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and the most common response to the second question is between 0 and 5 hours a week. Basically, almost everyone is spending virtually no time on whatever drives the most value for them and their business. So the key to this entire exercise is going back to the answer to the first question and asking yourself, how can I spend as much time as humanly possible on the answer to the first question, and then tracking it? And so this is dead simple. This is not complicated, but I guarantee you, if you take the answer to the first question and track how much time you spend on that every week, and you can eventually get that to, let's say, 15 or 20 hours a week, you will be in the top 0.1% of humans doing their job, because no one spends a lot of time on the answer to the first question. And if you do, you not only are very productive, but you make your company, if you're a business owner, you make your company the most valuable by doing that. And if you enable everyone in your company to do that exercise and spend the most time on their most valuable activity, that maximizes the value for your company. It's super simple, and it's really interesting to think about.
That's a great exercise, man. And it's fascinating how little we do these things. Like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so busy. I'm like, "I work 80 hour a week. Okay, what have you done? Where is your time going?
Yeah.
How much time do you spend on the most important activity that brings most value to the business? Oh, I don't know what that is. Well, maybe spend 10 minutes. Ask yourself this question. But it's hard. It's so easy to get into the. I think there was a book by Napoleon Hill. He was calling it hypnotic rhythm. You get into
Uh,
this hypnotic rhythm of just being not in the driver's seat,
yep.
right? Just being the passenger.
Yeah, and this, this activity and what you're saying kind of reminds me of something that Warren Buffett said. He said, write down all your priorities, right? Write them all down. Then prioritize the list. Make, your top three. And then he said, once you have your top three, just forget about the rest of the list. Everything else just doesn't matter. And the problem is the reason that people don't do that is it's so easy to keep track of everything digitally, right? In your email, in a to-do list, in Asana, and whatever, your project management. So literally, you might look at a list of 50 things every day that you haven't accomplished, but really 47 of them probably aren't that important. Here's though the psychology of why looking at a list of 50 every day is damaging or harmful, potentially harmful to you. So when you look at a list of 50 things and you say to yourself, "Oh my God, there's no way I'm going to get these 50 things done today." That's totally unrealistic, right? Like that's a legitimate thought. So when that happens, people become overwhelmed, right? Like think to yourself, "Oh my God, there's 50 things to do. I don't have time to do it all. There's no way I'm going to get them done. I'm overwhelmed now." Well, humans experience overwhelm as a loss of control, and control or autonomy is the number one human need. And so when you look at the list, you become overwhelmed. You experience that as a loss of control, and that puts you into fight or flight. So that's why a lot of this technology use puts you in a fight or flight. It makes you overwhelmed and makes you feel like you can't get everything done. And then you go into fight or flight and you're not productive.
You literally give access to yourself, access to everybody else to give you their demands and requests and priorities, as opposed to
Yep.
staying in control and minimizing those kind of influence from the external world, right?
Exactly.
And the way I deal with that, and again, the teachings and philosophy that I'm applying are quite impacted by some of the masters in the field. We had David Allen, GTD, a couple of times on the
Yep.
podcast, for example. Incredible wise person. Go read Getting Things Done. Great
Yeah.
book about the topic. But one of the main ideas he has is you cannot operate within in your head. You can't just go to the office or to your desk and start doing stuff and have a big list. You got to make sense of this list, right? If you have
Yeah.
40, 50 things, unrelated things, it's probably not a smart idea to start checking off the list. You need to organize and prioritize it a little bit. And one of the core principles about that is to always be clear what's the end result of your activity.
Yeah.
What are you after?
So yeah, what you're saying, it reminded me of something that, and it's a good kind of analogy. I was actually just talking about with my wife last night. Um, so when you have in psychology, when you have an unresolved thought or action, so think about it. So I'll give you an example. Let's pretend I'm in the kitchen and I'm making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and I run out of peanut butter, right? Okay, this happens all the time, right? I run out of peanut butter, and so now, what do I do? Do I write peanut butter on a grocery list somewhere? Or do I just try to remember the next time I go to the grocery store, I need to buy peanut butter? Well, if I just try to remember, that means that I still have to like complete this action in the future from memory. And so what that does is that's in psychology, it's called an open loop. It's an unresolved thought or action. And so that loop is open, and now I have to try to remember when I go to the grocery store, okay, get the peanut butter amongst all the other things that I need to remember during the week, not just about the grocery store, but about taking care of my son, picking him up, getting this done for work, etc. And so when you're trying to remember all these things in your mind and you have all these open loops, it again becomes overwhelming. The human mind isn't designed to keep track of 50 things in parallel. It's not a supercomputer. And so a lot of the techniques that I teach people are how to close the loop. So when you write down on the grocery list, I need peanut butter, that for that moment closes the loop. Now you don't have to remember it in your mind anymore. It's in an external system that you've captured the information, and it's closed the loop. Every time you look at your to-do list, you're literally reminding yourself of all the open loops you have, and that becomes very stressful. Does that analogy make sense?
Oh, absolutely, man. I'm nodding. That's the reason I'm nodding. For those of you who are listening to the podcast without a video, um, the reason is I can relate to that, and this is why methodologies like GTD are working really well, because they ask you to not keep anything in your head.
Exactly. They're asking you to close the loop.
They're asking you to close the loop, but you need to have systems. That's the thing, because I've also seen many people, they have 20 different place, like post-it note on their phone, on the, like they have 20 different places. Sometimes they forget to check them. You need to have your little system that works for you. Like for
Yeah.
me, I'm a spreadsheet guy. Like, okay, you're a post-it guy.
Right.
Like whatever works for you, man, doesn't matter. The
Right.
one that you will check, the system is the one that you will check. And that's why, I mean, talking about technology, some people, we start a workshop or a training program, and they ask me, Stoyan, what application should I use? Tell me the best application. I'm like, what are you using now? Do you need an
Right.
application? Can you do it
Right.
with a piece of paper, or like me, with a spreadsheet? Because you don't have the habit. You don't have the habit to, every time there is a open loop, you just take this item, put it on your to-do list. I mean, I'm using spreadsheets. Every sheet is a different day in the week.
Nice.
So if I have to do something on Thursday, I'll just open Thursday and I have a section that's called capture. And then I put,
Awesome.
get back to Rob. That's
Yep.
for Thursday. Forget about it. Close the loop on Thursday. When I'm planning my day on Wednesday, because I do it the day before, I'll see that I have this to do, and I'll decide. It doesn't mean I'm going to do it. This is my potential. I might have to do that. And then when Wednesday comes and I organize my list and I start to prioritize and I start putting in my calendar, another good thing, just 90 minutes, I'm going to complete those contracts. From 9 to 10:30, I have a meeting with myself to complete this contract.
Love it.
And then I start putting in the calendar. And it's like, I don't want to work after 6. Okay, cool.
Yep.
What does that mean? Then I need to be highly productive, man. When you place it in your calendar, and then something I learned the last couple of years is breaks.
Yes.
Not really natural with that. I work for 14 hours. I need to learn to be more better to take breaks, but I'm getting better. And it's like, man, if I'm to work 8, 9, 10 hours, and then you place all those things like very highly organized, and it's like half of the things that I was planning to do, I don't have time to do them.
Yeah.
Wow. Somebody calls you, hey man, let's just do this random thing. I don't have time,
Mm-hmm.
because I clearly see my priorities. They're in my calendar.
Yeah. I love what you just described, Stoyan, and that's what you described as time blocking, right? Putting blocks of time in your calendar for certain activities. I also think, and what again, like this is through hundreds of experiments on myself, I've experimented with giving myself a block of time each day where I work on whatever is my highest priority task. And of course, the task changes each day, but generally, I'm taking the same block of time each day for about 3 hours to work on a specific thing. But here's the psychology of why that's so powerful. And by the way, during that time, I generally don't check my email. I'm not scheduling meetings. I'm trying not to be on my phone. I'm literally just doing the most important thing for the day. Here's why this is so powerful. So when you are, let's say like you're having an amazing day and you're just crushing it, that's called being in a state of flow. And I'm sure people in this podcast have heard of that by Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. He came up with this psychological principle of flow. And what the data shows is that when you are in flow, you are up to 500% more productive than when you're not in flow. And so basically, if you can have 2 hours of flow per day, you literally can get done more during those 2 hours than an entire day without flow. And so during those 3 hours, my goal is to get in flow and to just be not distracted at all and really get into whatever it is I'm doing. And again, I'm not saying I'm successful at that every day. That's certainly not reality. But even if I'm successful 2 or 3 days a week of getting into flow for 2 to 3 hours, it literally makes me be able to do 2 or 3 times as much what I could accomplish during the week.
We had another great author joining the podcast. His name is Jay Papasan, the author of The One Thing.
Oh yeah, love that book. Yeah.
Incredible book, man. He's awesome. One of the things he was talking, by the way, the one thing for those of you who hasn't read the book is what Rob was already talking about. The one thing is the most important thing you need to focus on. The whole book is based around the question,
Mhm.
what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else is easier or necessary.
Yes.
So that's the question you can ask every day. You can ask about different areas of your life. And what they suggest is once you identify the one thing, you want to prioritize your morning.
Hmm.
And he says morning is when you wake up. Morning for some people is 6 a.m., for some people is 11 a.m. That's your
Sure.
morning. But this is when you have the most mental capacity and you want to prioritize 2 or 3 hours at least on your
Hmm.
most important objective.
Yep. Totally. I love that. And I've experimented with different ways of doing this. I've tried, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. What the research shows is that for the average person, right? Like your ability to really focus and do deep work like that, for most people, their daily capacity is at most 4 hours. But a lot of people can't really even get to 4 hours. And what I mean by that is that's like true focus, deep work, no distractions, like you're really in it 4 hours a day. I've chosen 3 hours just because it's more realistic for my schedule. And I don't feel like I can focus much more than 3 hours a day and truly do really great deep work. But the key is to have uninterrupted time, like a huge block of time where you're not scheduling anything else, because interruptions. So what the data shows is that when you're in flow and you're interrupted, it takes 26 minutes to get back into flow. So basically, if you're checking your phone during flow, if you're checking your email, every single time you do that, you're essentially killing at least a half an hour of time in flow, which is crazy. So that's why it's so critical to not be distracted during that time.
So Rob, tell us, how do you personally, you mentioned you do have ADHD, you know yourself very well these days. What helps you to get into a flow state?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, many different things, but a couple of them are, like you said, closing down email and not checking that. I actually also I have my phone on a nighttime schedule to go to sleep, but I also have it on a daytime schedule where during my, I call it GSD, which stands for get shit done. So I don't know if you can curse on here. Sorry. But get stuff done, we'll say get stuff done time, my GSD time. So during my GSD time, my phone also goes into like a focus mode where it essentially like doesn't shut it off completely, but like darkens the screen, etc. And again, that's a cue to me to be focusing during that time, so that I shouldn't be on the phone. Other things that I do are, again, I don't schedule meetings during that time. And my system, and again, this certainly doesn't have to be for everyone, but what I usually do is I'll look at my priorities for the day, and then I'll write down the top 1 to 3 things that I need to do during that time on my post-it note. And I put the post-it note on my desk. And because I am a very visual person, it's like annoying to me if there's things on the list that aren't crossed off. So, you're saying like, I
You
agree,
hacked it,
right?
man. You hacked it. No, it just you gotta. But that's the thing, man. You gotta find the way to do it. Like I don't like writing, for example. I
Yeah.
published 2 books together with my co-author, but
Awesome.
I don't like writing, man. I love to talk. I love to listen. I don't love to write. So I had to trick myself into writing.
Yeah.
So I would use all those things. Okay, if I push it to the afternoon, no freaking way, man. It's creative. It's you got to get into the zone, into the flow, and it's just not pleasant for me. So
Yep.
so I would say usually, let's say I start at 8 in the morning. Okay, let me block 3 hours or 4 hours for writing only.
Yep.
Okay, so 8 to 12. Some days it could be 2 hours, right? But I'm blocking the time. I get my coffee. I go for a walk because walking is really, helping your creativity, right?
Yep.
Boosting your creativity. Or it's placebo, but it works for me in
Sure.
both
Hey,
cases.
whatever. Either way.
So I get my coffee, get my little routine, and then sometimes my body is resisting, man. And then
Hmm.
what I do is like, Stoyan, just do it for 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
then I'm hacking my, like, because I start for 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't want to write. The first few minutes, I'm like, but then you kind of get into it. I just need to get myself to do it, because then you start writing, and
Yep.
um, same could be with accounting. Same could be with, whatever you guys don't necessarily enjoy doing, but it's important.
Yeah. So can I share the psychology of what you just said? Because I
Yeah, please.
researched this and it's so interesting. And again, with when you have ADHD, there's something called task initiation, which is like your ability to start a task and then stay with it. And people with ADHD have very poor ability to initiate a task. And so essentially what it is it's procrastinating, right? You're procrastinating. But here's the psychology of procrastination. So let's pretend you're talking about like something really daunting, like planning a wedding, right? So let's say you're like, okay, this weekend I'm going to plan my wedding and I'm going to, make a bunch of progress. So when the weekend comes and you sit down to plan your wedding, you think to yourself, oh my God, like planning a wedding, that's crazy. There's so many things to do. There's so many vendors. I have to talk to so many people. And again, the feeling that usually comes up is overwhelm. It becomes overwhelming to think about planning the wedding or actually do anything about planning the wedding. So instead of planning the wedding, you might do something like, you know what? I'm just going to go wash the dishes in the sink because I don't really want to plan the wedding. I just want to do something else. And so you'll procrastinate and do something that is way easier instead of working on that hard thing. As an example, what people probably do a lot in their job, and again, I'm just as guilty, is when there's a task that you really don't want to do and you want to procrastinate, you'll probably just check your email instead, because checking your email is way more easy and interesting than doing the task you don't want to do.
A little dose of dopamine, right?
Exactly. So when we think about the entirety of something that we don't want to do, like planning a wedding, it becomes overwhelming. We go into fight or flight, and then you don't want to do the task or activity, and you kind of lose productivity. But here's the one thing that you said that reminded me of this, that was the key to me learning what I need to do differently. If you just simply start the task, just say to yourself, like, 3, 2, 1, go. I'm just going to do the first step in the task. Once you start the task, your ability to continue going is dramatically increased. So really, all you just need to do is start, and that gets you going in the right direction. The other thing that you can do, and again, this is just for me personally, that I have found, is I really like EDM music. I like how upbeat it is. It's very positive. So I put on some really good music that I like, some EDM music, when I'm going to do something that I hate. And it definitely makes me more motivated. I'm not going to say it like changes everything, but I've learned that that's been a huge positive for me. And so I would encourage you to try to find something like that for yourself. Maybe it's you sit at a table that you like, where you like the view or something, or again, listen to music you like. That can definitely help you when you're procrastinating.
Yeah, you got to test. You got to personalize it. I'm personally using this app, Brain FM.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've heard of it. I'm not used it
Yeah,
though.
it's really cool. You basically have, um, look, it's you have, you
Oh,
can choose the different type of music, and they're claiming that it's scientifically sort of proven that the frequencies they operate, I don't understand it, right? But the frequencies they operate, they put you in a different kind of state of focus, for example. It
yeah.
works for me. I gotta tell you, it works for me. I've been having, I use it every day for a few hours when I
Wow.
work alone. You have different modes, like for motivation and creativity and learning. I don't know how that works, deep work. Um, but yeah, for me it works, man.
Love
um,
that.
it's uh, it's whatever works for you. It gets
Yeah.
me into focus, man. Certainly.
You got to experience. You got to experiment. Be your own experiment. Totally.
Yeah, it's this kind of a very like instrumental, sort of like repetitive kind of music that just gets you into somehow into the flow, being creative, or even if you have to do administrative tasks like I don't know, accounting or something else. It really works for me as well. But you know
Sure.
what I wanted to ask you? I wanted to ask you. Many people, many of us, are addicted to our phones and technology,
Yeah.
and you are more of a scientific guy that likes to read articles and books and stuff. And I wonder, what about addiction? Now, what do we do if we are addicted to our phones and technology at all? Like, how do we get rid of addiction?
Yeah, I mean, so to be, I think, and again, like myself included, I'm not excluded from this. I do think a lot of us are addicted to our phones in certain ways, and the reason that being addicted to your phone is incredibly difficult is it's not again, it's not all negative. We need our phone for a lot of positive things. So the analogy I give is it's like, well, I won't give that analogy, but basically, it's very hard to become not addicted to something that you need to use all the time. And again, the principles of technology mindfulness are the things that I coach people on are the things that are the ways that you can essentially become less addicted to your phone. Let me though share one thing, and I wanted to save this for one of the last things we chatted about. I want to share one thing with the listeners that I think could help you reframe your attitude or the way you think about your phone. And it might help you, think a little bit more about how much you use it. So in all this research that I've done, and again, just experimenting on myself, I wanted to know, well, like, okay, if we use our phone for something and then we compare doing that same thing on a computer, are we more efficient on a computer and why? And how much more efficient are we potentially? Well, here's what the data kind of shows. When you do something on your phone, if you do the same thing on your computer, you can be almost twice as productive or about twice as productive. So the takeaway is, let's say that you spend 10 hours per week doing email on your phone, which that would probably be a heavy user, but there's, I'm sure, plenty of people on the podcast who spend that much time on their phone, on their email, And so if you spend 10 hours on your phone on email per week, and instead you did all your email from your computer, you literally could save 5 hours per week right there, just from doing that one single thing differently. The reason is your computer generally has a way bigger screen than a phone, so you can just see more stuff. And most people, especially if you're middle-aged or older, type way faster on a physical keyboard than on a phone keyboard. So those two things combined make it way more effective and productive for you to do as much work as possible on your computer than on your phone. Now, I still do certain things on my phone occasionally, but what I have realized is when I use my phone, I'm trading convenience for productivity. I'm trading convenience for productivity. My phone is way more convenient, but it's not nearly as productive. And so again, you have to decide for yourself, how much do you want to have convenience be important to you versus productivity, and then use your phone accordingly.
And we're getting back to the same notion from the beginning, right? It's how much am I in control? How much am I in the driver's seat as opposed to being reactive to technology? Like, because if you decide I'm going to spend 5 hours per day on my phone because that's how I like it, and it's a conscious decision, and that's what you really want to do with your life, go for it, right? But I think the problem is when we have no idea and you end up spending 8 hours, unproductively wasting time that you're not happy about, then it's a problem, right? So then you have to sit down and ask yourself, how do I want my relationship with technology to evolve? How do I
Yeah.
want, what are the kind of the rules I want to set? Because there need to be some control and discipline, but it's difficult to have control and discipline if I don't know the rules. One way to I don't know where I read that, but one way to it works for me to um, master procrastination and master your relationship with the monkey mind is
Hmm.
is every time you get distracted and your monkey mind starts saying, check your Instagram, do this, watch YouTube, whatever, it's not that you kill it and you're like, okay, I'm never going to do it. You put it on a list of things, right? And
Mm,
then you say from 7 to 7:30 today is my procrastination time.
sure.
I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to go on my Instagram. I'm going to click on TikTok videos. I'll do whatever. I'll play Diablo. But this is the time
Mhm.
I allocate for the monkey. Monkey, not now, buddy. I'm
Mhm.
working. The man is working now. Monkey, 7 o'clock. You know what I mean?
Love that. That's fantastic. Yeah. So to allocate some time to just do it, to kind of mess around or do whatever. I love that. I love that.
By the way, just to add on, similar idea, but we spend so much time worrying about stuff,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So what if you allocate time for worrying and say, this is my list for worrying about stuff, right? Like, so oh my God, what I'm gonna do 2 days from now at this interview, put it on the list. Okay, now I have to work, but I worry at 8 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
make a list of the things you want to worry about, and I allocate time for worrying, but it's not now. Okay, let me get back
Mm.
to talking to Rob, but I'm gonna worry about this interview at 8 o'clock because I have a meeting with myself to worry about stuff. And
I
it's
love
weird,
that.
but it works, man. You just, again, it's hacking your mind. Like, try it. Just try it.
Yeah.
Have a little list. Next time you start worrying about something in the future or something that already passed, like, just put it on the list and make a
Mm-hmm.
meeting with yourself.
I love
Right?
that. So what I heard there is that you're essentially closing the loop in the moment about that thing you're worrying about, and then you're going to address it later. Like you're closing the loop. That's what you're doing in that
That's
moment.
that's what I'm doing, man.
I
I
love
love
it.
it. Yeah, man. That's such a great way to finish this great conversation. Rob, it's been such a pleasure, man. I mean, we can speak a lot about it, but I really want the audience to commit, like, to not just get some ideas, inspiration, but hopefully get one thing from this hour they spend with us and say, you know what, this is one little practice, this is one little habit, one little idea I'm going to put into action. Rob, what,
Hmm.
what would be your kind of final message today? We spoke a lot about productivity, tech harmony, how do we use technology for good,
Yeah.
for our personal mental well-being and productivity. What would be your final message to our lovely audience?
Yeah. So the name of my fractional CFO company that I have for fractional CFO consulting is called Humans First. And so I'll leave you guys with this thought. The amount of love, success, and happiness in this world is infinite. And so imagine how much love, success, and happiness we could all have together if we all decided to put humans first above technology.
Ah, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Rob, where could people find you, get in touch, and please let us know also what is Popular Agent and how can people, use your services and get help from you.
Yeah, so the current thank you, Stoyan. The current company that I'm working on is called Popular Agent. What we do is we make AI sales agents that convert more of your website traffic into leads. And so if you're a business that has high website volume and you want to get more leads from your website from existing traffic, we can make an AI agent for you, customized for your company. We do that all in less than a month, and we are full white glove service. So you don't have to do anything technical. We do everything for you. If you want to learn a little bit more about that, how to build an AI agent with us, you can go to popularagent.com. And then one of the other things that I wanted to offer the listeners today is a free customized demo with your data in it, and an agent that you could preview to see what it would be like to have one on your website. If you want to take advantage of that demo, you can just email me. My email address is rob.krecak@popularagent.com. Just mention this podcast and the customized demo in the email, and I'm happy to set one up with you.
So rob.krecak@popularagent.com.
You got it.
That's your
Mhm.
email. How are you with LinkedIn? If somebody DMs you there, are you
Yeah.
responsive or okay?
Yeah, it's probably better to email me just because I check that more often, but I
Hmm.
am on LinkedIn as well.
I love it, man. Well, thanks so much, Rob. Thanks for being with us. We finally made it. I'm super grateful and super happy. And of course, after this conversation, because it's 7 o'clock and 7:07 p.m. So I guess it's about time for me to switch off technology and listen to the advice of Rob.
Love
But
it.
if you if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with a friend. Once again, the more people subscribe to the podcast, the higher the leverage we have to invite incredible guests on the podcast. So if you enjoyed this and you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to go check out all the other episodes and subscribe to the podcast. Once again, thanks for being with us, and see you once again next week for another exciting episode of the Productivity Mastery Series. Ciao.